Hey guys, it's Jeff here. I just saw Precious based on the novel Push by Sapphire. God, I hate that title. That's why can't it just be Precious? Like any other movie. Why do you have to say based on the novel Push by Sapphire? It's like is that not the most pretentious title in the world? Anyways, thankfully the movie is not as precious as the title, but it definitely comes close at times and it's hard to give it a strong recommendation. Um you've seen movies like this before. It's a lot like Dangerous Minds or something like that, where it's like the story is inner city kids learning their potential through the power of education. Yay! Look, education, that's the answer to everything, which I agree. Education is important, but look what education did for me, you know? That's a stupid thing to say, but whatever. Gabrielle Sidibe or something, I think that's her name. She's like the main character. Everyone knows she's the big black girl, teenage black girl who's had a rough life. And it's basically instead of it being one of those movies like Dangerous Minds where it's the teacher and the classroom and that's like the main plot of it. Or man, what was the original movie like Dangerous Minds? To Sir with Love, I think, something like that. Like so many movies like that have been done a million times. It doesn't do that. It focuses on one particular girl and her problems, but it just fits that mold. It's the same thing except focused on one person. But because it's focused on that one person and she's had such a rough life. Oh my god, this girl's had such a rough life. They pour just one terrible thing on top of another onto this girl. It's a bit much. That's probably a problem with with a lot of the movie. It's all a bit much. It's a little overdone. Uh, just so many terrible things that happen to this girl. So it's also like a Dangerous Minds type of like inner city kids education movie mixed with an underdog story where you're supposed to root for the main character because life shits on them all the time, and I could relate to that. I like those types of movies, and that is kind of what this type of movie is. And I felt for the main character, Clarice Precious Jones is her name. I kind of felt for her. She's kind of God. You want to get this girl out of her house as soon as possible. She's been abused, sexually abused by her mom's boyfriend and her father. So she's been the victim of incest, and on top of that, her mom is I think mentally ill, but whatever she is, she's just a raging lunatic that abuses the shit out of her physically. I can't tell you how many times she throws like a glass or something against this girl's head that you think she would be dead. And there's one point in the movie I thought she was gonna get killed. I was like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. And that's the story. She's this abused, illiterate 16-year-old. I won't go into the rest of her problems, but they do honestly. They keep pouring it on, even at the end, long after they had to. You're already on her side, and you want her to succeed, and they keep pouring more tragedy onto her. And I respect going for like a realistic life where you don't want a happy ending or whatever, but it feels like it's just pouring it on for no reason at some point. And so she's getting abused, and kids at school pick on her, and rumors go on and around about her. And she leaves her school, and by from the advice of her principal or whatever, or the advice of her principal, she joins this like special like alternative school for like troubled kids, and it's a smaller classroom, and she gets more focus on her. And actually, the most interesting parts of this movie to me were revolving around like I guess a philosophy of education. I kind of I think it does kind of express some things that I would kind of agree with, which is a smaller classroom where you get to focus more on the students, and then she kind of blossoms out of that. She becomes the best Precious she could be, or whatever. But I like honestly, one of my favorite things in the movie was this teaching method that this teacher had, which if I ever do become a teacher, I will use this. A lot of teachers make you keep journals or little diaries or whatever in a class where you have to write for 10, 20 minutes a day, right? And that's a method that this teacher uses, except she actually writes back to the students in their journal responding to what they wrote that day, which is I think is a really good way to give, one-on-one student interaction where you're specifically helping that student instead of speaking to the class. It's the kind of dedication I think more teachers should have, honestly. But I guess enough about that little side note. Um, so you get the gist of the movie. Like I said, Dangerous Minds mixed with an underdog movie. You know, this big black girl is getting abused in this inner city. You get the idea. So what's good and bad about it? Good is the performances. They're really good. The way that some of the material handled is handled well, but there are problems. I think the movie is too stylish, a little too flashy for the story it's trying to tell. It doesn't make sense to have all these flashy scenes when you're just telling like this domestic drama, really. This kind of small, performance centered, story centered story. You don't really need to do all these. It's like I said, just a little too stylish for its own good. I don't want to say it's like a Tarantino movie. It's not at all. But it's sort of like having Tarantino do your standard fare stuff and him adding all these quirky things that it doesn't need. Probably the thing that rubbed me wrong the most, and maybe some people won't agree with me on this. There's all these scenes where Precious escapes her current situation, her current world. Usually, sometimes when she's passed out because her mom knocked her ass out, where she's escaping where she is and dreaming of being this sexy celebrity or whatever, still with her same body weight and whatever, but she's dreaming of being famous and having a good life. Which one I just think it's a ham-fisted way of getting your point across, where you could just show this girl's face and you could tell that she's dreaming of getting the hell out of there. Shit, you could just show the situation she's in and she wants to get the hell out of there. Why do you need to show these fantasies all the time of her escaping in her head to somewhere else? Not needed, man. This isn't Pan's Labyrinth. It didn't play into the plot. And my other problem with it is I'm sure that they didn't intend it. It's just that it plays into this like celebrity culture where being famous is the most important thing. Like she's not dreaming of being a scientist or a politician. She's dreaming of being some girl on a stage or walking out on a red carpet. And maybe it was meant as a criticism of that kind of culture, but it doesn't come across as it. It comes as across as something that is perpetuating that kind of celebrity culture where that's not the most important thing in life. I'm sorry. I'd love to be famous. Or I'd love to at least be able to write for a living. Let's put it that way. But it's just, that's the wrong message to send to people, if you ask me. So I didn't like that. And the movie, it's just a little too slick and stylish at times, and at the same time gross. Like some of the food that you see in this movie, like the pig's feet, it's all greasy looking. It's like, oh, God. But it's just, overwrought and at the same time a little underdeveloped. I mean, when you have a scene where Precious goes, "Nobody loves me," and the teacher goes, "But I love you." Come on, tone it down a little bit. So, yeah, I guess I'll finish this in the next video. I'll try to make it quick, guys.